Welcome to the Arlington Street Church podcast. Founded in 1729, Arlington Street continues today as a gathering place for progressive people of faith in the greater Boston area and beyond. We are located at the corner of Arlington and Boylston Streets, across from the Public Garden in Boston, Massachusetts. Please visit ascboston.org for more information about this historic Unitarian Universalist congregation. Arlington Street Church, gathered in love and service for justice and peace.
Let's talk about gravity. It's everywhere. You can't see it, but it's in this very room with us right now. When you go home, it'll be there too. It's everywhere we go all the time. It's one of the basic tenets of our life. Everything we make assumes the existence of gravity. Airplanes couldn't land if it wasn't for gravity to assist it. If I dropped a bowling ball and it floated off to the heavens, we'd be in shock. Our entire way of looking at the world would need to change. Evolution itself is built around the assumption of gravity. We drink like we do because we can count on gravity to take the water from our mouth to our stomach. We walk like we do because the weight gravity affords us allows us to stay in contact with the ground. Gravity is a part of the world, just like being wet is a part of a fish's world. And yet here we are, living in an age of miracles and wonders. A company called Virgin Galactic can fly you up to the edge of space to see the world from a perspective very few humans have ever experienced. But even more than that, you'll be freed from the bonds of gravity. Technically, you'll be flying in a parabolic arc, just like a satellite does. But yeah, you'll be floating for about 4.5 minutes. The cost of this flight starts at around $450,000. That's about $100,000 for every minute of weightlessness. You also have to complete several days of training and pass a physical to make sure you're prepared, as the company puts it, physically, mentally, and spiritually. Now that's a line straight out of the Virgin Galactic marketing department, so take it for what it's worth. But it points to a larger truth. The people taking these flights aren't spending this time and money just to do somersaults in zero G. They're looking for something like a spiritual experience. On that flight, you're looking down at the planet. You've literally stepped outside the world, escaped even the fundamental, foundational law of gravity itself. It must seem like a moment of infinite possibilities. You and the people around you are unconstrained in ways that we humans aren't even designed to experience. It's easy to see why people might consider it a spiritual thing. I had my own less expensive, but also less enjoyable experience with weightlessness. In 2013, I left work to attend a small get-together here at the church. A few minutes later, my Honda was hit by a car that ran a stop sign. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see that it was going to hit me. My first thought was, crap, I'm going to be late. An instant later, I found myself floating off of my seat. I was completely baffled because it really felt like somebody had switched off the gravity switch. I let go of the wheel instinctively to grab at the sides of my seat. In reality, of course, my car was rolling over. On the second roll, I realized I was tumbling, and there was a moment of, oh, now it makes sense. And then, as the third roll started, in that last 1/10 of a second before I blacked out, I thought to myself, oh, this might be how I die. I wasn't scared because I didn't have time to be, but I was awestruck. The universe seemed so much bigger for just that fraction of a second. I went from get casserole, go to church, to life or death. I knew in that instant that I was going to be changed forever. But how? Like our wealthy space tourists, it felt like the possibilities were infinite. Spoiler alert, I didn't die. Instead, my brain was transplanted into this body that was custom grown for me in a secret government facility. So what am I getting at with this? I tell you these stories because we as a church are living in that 4.5 minutes of weightlessness right now. Reverend Kim is retired. Our new minister, Reverend Parisa, hasn't started yet. We as a country are headed towards a date with destiny this November, and we can't even say for sure who's going to be running against Donald Trump for the presidency. And we as a world are grappling with a terrifying rise in far-right nationalism and totalitarianism that threatens the notion of democracy as a sustainable form of government. Like me and my car accident, change is coming, but we can't imagine what it's going to look like. Like me and my car accident, we aren't entirely in control of the facts and realities before us. But, like me and my accident, we are in control of the story we tell, and that counts for a lot. Psychologist Jonathan Adler of Olin College studies how we process and make stories. He says that while humans are notoriously bad at remembering fine details of events, we're very good at finding meaning in them. He says, stories are an amazing tool for holding on to the meaning of our past experiences. The objective facts of each of our lives are what they are. But the stories are about where we draw connections between things, where we parse the chapter breaks of our lives. And those are narrative acts, not historical acts. And the way we do that can have big implications for our well-being. So that's important to note, that part about chapter breaks. We can think of stories as chapters in the book that is our life. Where we start and end those chapters is the key. Dr. Adler's field of study is called narrative psychology. To oversimplify it, everyone's life has good things and bad things. And the rubber hits the road when we're drawing connections between the good and the bad. A story that ends negatively is known as a contamination sequence of events. A story that ends positively is a redemption sequence. Does that sound weird? Let's look at an example. The story I could tell about my accident goes like this. I was leaving work. I was in a terrible car accident. I spent all summer in the hospital, had more than a dozen surgeries, and was left with permanent physical limitations. It's a real downer of a story, a classic contamination sequence. Things start bad and end even worse. But what if the story doesn't end there? Here's another version. I was in a terrible car accident and spent all summer in the hospital having surgery after surgery. During that time, I became closer to my boyfriend, Art. He'd visit me constantly, he'd bring me food he'd made for me, listen to my complaints, and was supportive in every way you could imagine. When it was time for me to return to my apartment, he invited me to live with him instead. And on the 1-year anniversary of my accident, he asked me to marry him. That, my friends, is a heck of a redemption sequence. Now, both of those stories are 100% true, but it's that chapter break that makes all the difference. Where we put it changes the meaning of the story, and where we put it is entirely up to us. So why is this important? As Dr. Adler says, we find over and over that when redemption sequences occur in people's life stories, they tend to be associated with positive well-being, good life satisfaction, lower levels of things like depression, higher self-esteem. And it's just the opposite for themes of contamination. So as we drift through this 4.5 minutes of weightlessness in this church and in the wider world, I propose this as a strategy. Let's not be quick to write the end of this story. Things are precarious out there, But there are also a lot of reasons for hope. Remember that this story is still being written. The Little Prince is one of the most popular books ever written. It's been translated into more than 500 languages and dialects, making it the second most translated work in history. Number one, of course, is the Bible. Its author, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, finished writing it just over a year before he died fighting in World War II. In the book, the title character, a young boy, recounts things he's learned on his travels to several different planets, including Earth. In those travels, he meets a fox that won't play with him because he isn't tamed. The little prince asks, "What does that mean, tame?" "It is an act too often neglected," said the fox. "It means to establish ties." "To establish ties?" "Just that," said the fox. "To me, you are still nothing more than a little boy who is just like 100,000 other little boys, and I have no need of you. And you, on your part, have no need of me. To you, I am nothing more than a fox like 100,000 other foxes. But if you tame me, then we shall need each other. To me, you will be unique in all the world. To you, I shall be unique in all the world." To us, the word tame sounds a little funny. We often use it to mean domesticated or controlled. But the fox is talking about establishing ties, in other words, forming a relationship. If you've ever had a dog or a cat, you know that you don't tame your pet, you and your pet tame each other. The fox continues, "If you tame me, it will be as if the sun came to shine on my life. I shall know the sound of a step that you will be different. I will know that the sound of a step that will be different from all the others. Other steps send me hurrying back underneath the ground. Yours will call me like music out of my burrow. And then look, you see the grain fields down yonder? I do not eat bread. Wheat is of no use to me. The wheat fields have nothing to say to me, and that is sad. But you have hair that is the color of gold. Think how wonderful that will be when you have tamed me. The grain, which is also golden, will bring me back to the thought of you, and I shall love to listen to the wind in the wheat." Earlier, I talked about how the stories we tell affect how we see ourselves and the world. The same is true for our relationships. Through the fox's friendship with the little prince, not only will the prince come to have special meaning for him, but even ordinary things like wheat fields take on a special meaning, because now the entire world can be seen through the lens of that friendship. There are ripple effects that influence all aspects of the fox's life. So to extend this metaphor of weightlessness, let me offer this suggestion. We can double down on the relationships in our lives, and where possible, make new friendships. Because when this 4.5 minutes of floating is over, those relationships are the ones that will provide the gravity that keeps us bound to this world. If things go badly, and they will, those relationships will be the ones that comfort us. If things go well, and they will, those relationships will be the ones we celebrate with. Every week here at Arlington Street, we share our candles of joy and sorrow with this reminder: we need one another. Whether together or apart, may we remain very close. And how do we stay close? Visit friends. Even a weekly text message can be enough to keep that relationship alive. I'm an introvert, so I know relationships can be exhausting. But they don't have to be. It can be as easy as saying, "How are things going?" Remember, most relationships don't end because the people stop liking each other. They end because our routines of life get in the way. Beloved spiritual companions, weightlessness can be scary, but it can also be a spiritual experience. Use this time to contemplate the infinite possibilities of this moment and prepare yourself to be surprised. Think carefully about the stories you tell to yourself and to the world around you, because they not only explain your past, but they shape your future. And lean into the personal connections that fill your life, because as the fox observed, the wheat fields have no meaning until they reminded him of his friend, the little prince. Amen. For today's benediction, I'll let the fox have the last word. So the little prince tamed the fox, and when the hour of his departure drew near, "Ah," said the fox, "I shall cry." "But it is your own fault," said the little prince. "I never wished you any form of harm, but you wanted me to tame you." "That is so," said the fox. "But now you are going to cry," said the prince. "Yes, that is so," said the fox. "Then it has done you no good at all." "It has done me good," said the fox, "because of the color of the wheat fields." Let's keep this faith, beloveds, and pass it on. The service begins when the service ends. Bless your hearts. I love you. Amen.
Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine.
Please visit ascboston.org for more information about this historic Unitarian Universalist congregation. Arlington Street Church, gathered in love and service for justice and peace.